Alright, everybody, welcome back finally. I know it's been quite a while. I think it's almost been a month since my last content update, and I apologize for that. Anyone with Asperger's knows that anytime there is a significant change in the routine, there's definitely a recovery period where things have to just kind of just mellow out for a while until you can get back into your rhythm. And it's a little tougher when what happens to change your routine itself lasts longer than a couple days. So I'll get into that in a little bit. Today I'm going to be messing around in Forager. This is an adorable game that I helped back on Kickstarter, and I supported it for a little while via Patreon. Eventually, if I get to the point where I can get some droids and stuff like that in game, there is a droid that I donated enough to have made for me, which is really cute. I decided after one of my bunnies, I believe his name is Loposaurus in game, so if you see him, that's mine. Yeah, let's just do classic. There really is no stress to this game. It's nice and simple. You start out on this little island, and everything that you need is just going to appear over time. And you can buy islands as well as build things, but you have to earn money in order to buy the islands. I can't remember how many islands exactly there are, but there's a decent amount. And there's a pretty good sized tech tree as well. I can't remember how to get to it though. Oh yeah, there's also skills and all that fun stuff. Here we go. Yeah, so this is the tech tree. Initially you just start out with these, but each time you unlock it, it unlocks the adjacent tiles. So there's a decent amount to go. Alright. Yeah, so that's the basics of the game, and I think it's absolutely adorable. As you can probably tell, I adore pixel art in general. I try to do pixel art myself, but it's a matter of actually taking the time doing it. Anyway, back to the long absence. Basically, it all started with that cold, where I made the really short video, and after getting that cold, I took NyQuil one night, and I ended up with an extremely severe neck cramp, and that actually persisted for almost a week and a half, 2 weeks, to the point where it got so bad that I could not work, I couldn't drive, and I ended up having to go to an urgent care, and I got prescribed some really nice happy drugs in order to try and relax it, because any attempt to reduce the swelling would make the pain worse. Any attempt to reduce the pain would make the swelling worse. So I just had to chill out for a while and let that run its course, which sucked because it fucked up my routine severely. Then shortly after that, I kind of hit a little bit of a depressive episode because my routine had changed so much, which is why when I tried to record, it just wasn't happening. I couldn't focus my mind at all because I hadn't taken the time to get myself back to a level where I was comfortable. So I decided, alright, I'll take that week off, and next week I'll do it. And then just more and more stuff kept happening. And last night I slept damn near 13 hours. I feel pretty good today. There's the inaugural yawn. See a bunch of berries. I should build a furnace, it tells me. Alright, let's build a furnace. Toss that guy down there. I should probably also go to the forge eventually. I don't have coal though. Oh, that's right, I can make coal. Yeah, let's just do max. Oh, actually, I guess I have to click craft just to do that. There we go. Alright, so that's gonna make me coal so I can get my use of stuff. As I said, I do want to eventually play some Minecraft, like Sky Factory and stuff like that, because I really enjoy games like this where all of your resources basically are just randomly generated, or you have to create them in some way or another. Like, these trees do appear, but it's not like I'm running around hunting for iron or anything like that, because they just pop up as well. And then I craft what I need, and it just kind of snowballs from there. Also, if I'm not mistaken, that lightning that's happening can actually hit me or my stuff, which I'm a little concerned about. There's my first bit of gold. Nice. So yeah, let's craft some iron, because I know that's going to be needed. I need to keep getting wood so that I can make more coal. Also, those berries, these guys that appear, you can bottle them up and they're very useful crafting ingredients, or if you click on them, they give you some experience, and I think they also heal you, which is really nice. But yeah, during the long absence, I went and saw Les Mis, performed by the traveling group that goes around America at the Columbus Theater here, which is absolutely gorgeous. I've never been in a theater nearly that size before, and it was amazing. It's incredible. I think that's definitely a play that everyone should see at some point, because I feel like almost anyone can relate to it. And then otherwise, on the whole Aspie side of things, like, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to talk about. There were some things I was kind of focused on, which was the way, actually, probably the biggest thing that should have tipped me off earlier on that I had Asperger's was this whole routine collapse. I had kind of sort of identified that process and that reaction early on in my life, because just anytime something unusual happened or was expected of me or occurred in my life, I had real difficulties adapting to it, and if it started to impact how I functioned, I would basically just have a mental breakdown. And I didn't understand what that was, and I started referring to it as basically light switch moments. Essentially that you have developed a routine that functions so well until the requirements of you change. And when the requirements change, your routine no longer functions, and things just keep getting worse and worse and worse until eventually you just have this depressive episode and collapse of your ego and your sense of self, and you have no idea what the hell's going on anymore. And eventually you adjust to that by creating a new routine that meets the requirements, usually slightly above or largely above the requirements needed, and then life goes back to normal. You have a routine, everything functions, everything's fine, you can go back to autopilot and be comfortable. And that happened several times throughout my childhood, and I have a feeling that that's probably going to happen several more times in my life, and I'm better equipped to handle them now because I'm aware of what it is and what's happening. So hopefully the depressive episodes will be shorter, but it is something to be aware of. So as a couple examples, like, I wanted to go through some of my childhood examples of instances where I had a light switch moment. But before I get to the light switch moments, I want to talk first about an instance of where I had a depressive episode and I shut down and then completely changed how I approach people. So I think it was back in elementary school or something. I don't even remember what age I was, but it was the first time that a girl showed interest in me. And unlike the normal expectations of boys, which I was vaguely aware of, like I was supposed to make the moves and stuff like that, but I wasn't really interested. At that time, like, I was aware, and yeah, I mean, girls were cute, and I kind of thought about relationships occasionally, but I had no real interest in putting forth the energy to do it, or how to approach that. So when this girl told me that she was interested in me, I was unsure of how to approach. So she actually just straight up asked me, "Hey, do you want to date?" I said, "Yeah, sure." And then I did absolutely nothing different, which drove her insane. Not literally, but she got very upset with me and eventually, like, asked me, like, "Are you serious about this? Like, why aren't we doing anything? Why aren't we holding hands or whatever?" Keep in mind, elementary school. So yeah, let's do that. eventually I just told her, like, you know, let's just forget it. It's not that I'm not interested. I don't even know if I worded it that way. I just kind of told her, like, never mind. Which probably didn't do much for her peace of mind, and I do feel terrible about that. I've felt terrible about that for several years. But she ended up having a good life. I keep in touch with her occasionally. But yeah, that was a situation where I was approached and given new requirements, essentially, and I didn't know how to respond to it, so I shut down. Going forth throughout school, however, actually, yeah, there was one other thing I want to talk about, is that kind of set the mood for me when it came to dating in general, is that I prefer to be approached as opposed to approaching people, both romantically and in a friendship setting, because it's more comfortable for me if the other party is dominant or more comfortable leading a conversation or something along those lines, because that allows me to follow their rules. It gives me a routine, it gives me expectations that are very straightforward, and I don't have to rack my brain trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. Like right now, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. Do I have enough money? Yeah, I can buy more land. Let's do that. Whew, that was hey, it's the Radish Island! So you can actually kill these radishes, and radishes are a good food source, but I think they're adorable, so I'm not going to kill them. I'm just going to grab the fairies. But now I have more space for things to generate, which is fantastic, because as you saw, I was starting to catch up on things. Actually... Ooh, yes. The fish are also a wonderful source of food, so I'm going to get some fish traps going. Alright. I think I have a skill point available. Yeah, I do. So yeah, going further in my school career, another situation of me shutting down was the transition from, I think it was the transition from elementary to middle school. History class in particular, I had never really been interested in history. So in that class in particular, especially when it came to like learning the flags of other countries and things like that, I just shut down and I had no interest, but I didn't realize how much that would impact my grades. So I, before this, had been a habitual like B+, A- student. That was always my goal, is to maintain that level. And the reason why I made that my goal is that it is good enough that no one can complain, and bad enough that no one can say I need to be an AP. You know, it's a very strategic place to be, so that I can minimize the amount of contact I need to have with adults and people, and not pressure myself to learn more things, which I probably should have, looking back on it. But, you know, that's the past. Oh, hey, my first enemy. Oops. What was I getting at? Oh yeah, I hated history. So my grade tanked almost immediately down to like a D+, which was a significant impact, and it obviously drew a lot of attention, and I was very uncomfortable with that. I had no interest in that. So I had my little depressive episode. I think at that age, it probably lasted about a week or so, where I just kind of kept myself in my room for a couple days. I'm sure my mom was worried, but as I said, my childhood was quite rocky, so there's no real telling on that front. And eventually I adjusted, and when I adjusted, I went right back to the grades that I was expected to have, and yeah, I had that light switch moment, as I mentioned earlier, how I started referring to them. And this happened a couple times throughout my schooling. When I started high school, I actually, that was a rough one, because I started high school in a state that I was not comfortable with. My mom had been deployed overseas, so I was staying with family in South Carolina, and the school I was going to was probably the worst school that I have ever gone to. It was out in the middle of a farming community. I'm pretty sure I saw the principal smoking weed in the quad at one point, and I saw teachers gathering around students that were fighting and cheering them on in the hallways at some points. So it was quality school, and my personal care dropped significantly. Like I stopped taking baths and showers except maybe once or twice a week. I let my hair grow out obnoxiously long, and I listened to music as much as I possibly could, anytime I could get away with it. And I socialized with essentially nobody. And that was actually, man, yeah, I don't talk about this lightly. I did attempt suicide at one point when I was living there, and in retrospect, it was a foolish act, and I really should not have done that. Um, but given how much had changed in my life at that point, and that I had no real control and no routine that I could develop, that I felt that I could develop that would allow me to function, I don't want to say it was understandable. Suicide is never an option, and you should always seek help. But yeah, I felt helpless at that point, and that was a poor attempt at trying to find an out. But eventually I adjusted. I started writing a lot, specifically around like the start of the school year. They had, you know, a massive going back to school sale, so I ended up buying 100 one subject notebooks because they were selling them for like 10 cents a piece. So I ended up getting them for like $20, which was amazing, and that allowed me to write a ton and get my thoughts out, and that gave me a way to focus. Like I said, writing has always been one of the things that I really enjoyed ever since, you know, elementary school, where I wrote my first little short story, and I was a decent doodler at the time. My art skills have fluctuated constantly, mainly because I just don't consistently practice, which is a big key in becoming a good artist, which I really need to work on, because it is a great way to get ideas out of your head, and boy oh boy do I have a lot of ideas that I need to get out. And I'm not using my skill points. But yeah, I had that moment there, and then it happened again in my junior year, where my grades tanked and I had to adjust. It happened again in my sophomore year, though that one was because the tornado that hit my school put me out of school for a month and killed 8 students. I had been checked out shortly before. Looks like the bunnies are starting to get a little bit active, so you may hear some noise in the background, just as an FYI. I need some storage. But it also has happened a couple of times after, after graduating high school. Specifically in college, there were a couple of light switch moments where I struggled and then just spontaneously jumped back into effectiveness. There were also a couple moments in my careers where I realized, oh, this just isn't working for me. I really need to change jobs and try to actually make something of myself. Yeah, I don't know. I always, like I said, I've always called those my light switch moments, but in reality, it is just this natural kind of progression of a shutdown that occurs when you have autism, and there are ways to handle it, and I'm still learning them. And yeah, it's strange. I need brick. That's what I need to do. Let's make a bridge here so I don't have to constantly walk around on there too. I need steel to make a vault. I need steel to make a bank as well. And I don't think I've unlocked steel. Wonderful. At least things are spawning again, so I can do that. I feel like there was something else I wanted to talk about today, but it is escaping me. Well, on the happier front, I mean, a lot of good things have been happening recently as well. So I got a really nice year-end bonus from work, which was quite significant, and that's allowing me to pay off another one of my credit cards. I'm very excited about that. But in addition to that, like, I had a little bit of money left over, which I could have put toward another one of my credit cards, but I decided I want to treat myself and my girlfriend to something that we've been talking about for quite some time, when we first started dating, we got a pair of betta together, betta fish. So she had one up at her apartment, and I had one at mine. And eventually, when we moved in together, we had them nearby, and it was adorable. And they were our relationship fish. And eventually, they maxed out their life. Betta only live 3 to 5 years. Sometimes a little bit longer in good conditions, but it is what it is. And we kind of just put that on the shelf as a happy memory. But in the past year or so, we've been talking about, like, if we wanted to do that, how would we go about it? And kind of decided that we would want to make it as luxurious of a tank as we possibly could. And since I have become obsessed with aquascaping, I am all for that. Because I have Toothless's tank, my axolotl, as a planted tank, and it is doing very well. We've had a couple instances where we've struggled with it, but in large part because I decided to plant the aquarium after we got Toothless. We converted it from artificial plants to real plants, and that is definitely not how you should set up aquariums. So it took a long time to get that into a stable form. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry. Yeah, and that's why you don't hit the radishes, or you can just brutally murder them. They'll forgive you anyway. But yeah, I have enough money left over from the bonus that I'm going to be buying a cube tank and tons and tons and tons and tons of plants. I've done a lot of research on planted aquariums and the ecology and the chemistry behind it and studying it. Specifically, my favorite method for low-tech aquariums is the Wallstad method, and I actually have a book specifically about that called The Ecology of the Planted Aquarium by Diana Wallstad. I can't remember if she is an ecologist or just a chemist or something along those lines, but she is definitely really big in the aquarium hobby. Like, she just loves doing it. She's always done it, and she wanted to understand the science behind all the plants and how they functioned, and like how plants fight each other or help each other. And there's so many different things that can affect the health of an aquarium, and I'm glad that someone took the time to actually stop and think it all out and do the science behind it, figure out the math. And I love her book. I've read it probably like 6 or 7 times, at least 2 times in the past couple of weeks, and I'm going to be following her method to setting up this aquarium, and I'm really excited about it. But also, I kind of have an obsession with tiny things, which my girlfriend laughs at a lot. But I found a plant that, for any of you who are familiar with aquarium plants, the plant's name is Anubias nana petite, which obviously, based on the name, if you're familiar with them, is a very tiny, like wide leaf plant. It's adorable, generally stays very small, and takes a very long time to grow. What I found out recently, however, is that there is a dwarf version of this dwarf plant, called the Anubias pangolina. So it's even tinier, and the leaves kind of resemble pangolin, what would you call them? Shells? Maybe? I don't know. Like, just pangolin skin, you know how they look. It kind of looks like that, and it's really adorable, and it grows even slower, and it stays absolutely tiny, like only a couple centimeters maximum. And it's a reasonably expensive plant. It's like $50 for a cutting, and it actually, like, generally they propagate it in like a lab because it's very difficult to propagate. But I'm really excited to get that, and yeah, I'm gonna give that tank the best possible chance to set up. The Wallstad method, for those of you who are curious, is essentially you set up an aquarium with soil, and you prepare it so that the plants are, at least if you're following the dry start method, you prepare it so that, okay, that unlocks steel. You plant the plants in the soil while it's moist, but do not add all the water initially. And over time, you begin to add water because plants grow significantly faster when they have access to the carbon dioxide in the air as opposed to just carbon dioxide in the water. So by doing this, you allow the plants to establish and grow significantly faster, and specifically the Wallstad method relies on planting a massive amount of plants and allowing the plants to figure out which ones are going to thrive and which ones are going to die. So the idea behind that is that plants are actually extremely ruthless in the plant kingdom. Basically, plants conduct chemical warfare against each other and also biological assistance with each other. So certain plants, and it is very poorly understood which relationships are what at the moment, some plants will produce chemicals which inhibit or prevent other plants from growing or gathering the nutrients that they need by blocking receptors in their DNA or in their chemistry and things like that. But at the same time, those plants can also produce chemicals which make it significantly easier for other plants to get the resources that they need. And it's really fascinating to think about, but since it's kind of poorly understood at the moment, specifically it's called allelopathy, where they're attacking or assisting each other. And because there's not a significant resource on... God damn it, Lorelei, where are you going? She's like moving her litter box and her hut at the same time, just migrating around her cage as noisily as she possibly can. But yeah, since it's poorly understood at the moment, there is basically the only method that you can use is trial and error. So by planting a large amount of plants and allowing them to figure out which ones are going to establish and which ones are going to die, you will create a self-sustaining, dare I say, perfect aquarium. And the reason why I say that is because the plants that will survive are most likely going to thrive because they're the ones that are working together to assist each other in gathering the nutrients that they need. And it's, I don't know, it's strange, it's fascinating, and I really enjoy thinking about it and studying it. And I want to say I've got a list of about, I don't know, like 15 or 16 plants that I'm going to put in this aquarium, and generally you should only expect about 5 to 7 of them to actually thrive. So there's going to be a lot of die-off, which is fine because without adding any life into the plant like shrimps or snails or feeder fish or anything like that, that's going to decompose and produce the nutrients that the plants will need in order to establish themselves even faster. So yeah, it'll be a fine balancing act, but I'm going to give that aquarium several months, at least 3 months, to establish itself and really start thriving before we even consider getting the beta, which is going to be completely on my girlfriend. This is my present to us, and it'll be her decision what kind of beta we get to put in there. And then it should be, for the large part, hands-off, just occasionally adding water, maybe doing a water change, but it should regulate itself and control algae all on its own, and I'm really excited to get that done. Yeah, now that I've kind of caught up with everything that I wanted to talk about, and I feel a little bit better since I had the chance to sleep and try to readjust my schedule and get back in to things, I really just wanted to get a video out there today and let you guys know that everything's fine and I'm still here. And if you guys need me, by all means, reach out. I'm around. Even if I'm going through a dark period, one thing that I can always attest to is the fact that when it comes to others, I have near limitless energy. It does come at a cost, obviously, and I need to be careful about using up my energy, but don't worry about me. Just trust that I will take care of myself, and if you need help, I am more than happy to do anything. Whether it's, you know, talking with you or just being the person that you write to, essentially like the fireplace that you would write down your thoughts on a piece of paper and burn the paper. I can be that person for you. It doesn't matter to me. Whatever it takes to help you, I'm more than willing to do. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna call this video quits today as a nice simple update. And I love you guys, and I hope everything's going well in your life. And if it's not, just hold on to that, because things will get through, and things will get better. And I'll see you next time. Bye!